Hey guys, tonight we begin with something simple. A single candle, its small flame steady against the darkness. Not grand, not dramatic, just a quiet glow. You're holding it now in the soft hush of evening, in that strange moment between wakefulness and rest. It doesn't matter where you are or what the day has taken from you. For now, there is only this flicker. You. You will not be able to control the world, but you can learn to control yourself. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, while you're at it, let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is in your corner of the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing at the edge of a memory, one you haven't visited in a long while, a room quiet and still. A younger version of you, perhaps no more than 8 or 9, sits near a desk. The power has gone out. Storm or faulty wiring, it doesn't matter. There is only the dark. And in that dark, someone, maybe a parent, a grandparent, strikes a match and lights a candle. It flares, sputters, then steadies. You remember how it felt, watching that little flame, dancing but never afraid. You didn't know then that it was a kind of training, that you were already learning how to stay calm in uncertainty, how to watch without flinching. The candle taught you something. Stillness isn't weakness, it's power under control. Even now, when you close your eyes, you can almost feel that warmth, that quiet promise, I won't go out. The Stoics speak often of this, not in terms of literal fire, but the inner flame, your hegemonicon, the ruling part of your soul. Marcus Aurelius called it the guiding principle. Epictetus compared it to a citadel, silent, invincible, untouched by the outside world. And right now, you're beginning to realize you've had this flame all along. Maybe you forgot. Maybe you've been rushing around with a storm overhead or inside. But tonight, you return to it. You examine the candle in your hands. It doesn't flicker with anxiety. It doesn't plead to be admired. It simply burns. This is where it begins, not in a battle, not in a victory speech, but in a quiet moment of awareness. You are still here. And that matters. Outside, the wind may howl. People may come and go, praise you or dismiss you, but this little light, it stays. As long as you feed it with right thought, deliberate choice, and a refusal to be ruled by anything external, it stays. And you think back to a recent moment. Maybe it was small. Someone cut in front of you in traffic or dismissed your idea in a meeting. Your first instinct might have been to flare up, to prove something, to defend, to lash out. That's natural. But the candle doesn't rage. It doesn't argue with the wind. It just continues. You're beginning to understand you're not here to win every battle. You're here to hold your light. And in holding it, you learn to see. There's a quiet paradox here, one of those Stoic truths that sounds like a riddle. The less you try to control others, the more power you gain over yourself. The less you demand, the freer you become. That person who angered you, they were just wind. And you can choose to be a candle that doesn't go out. Now imagine this. In ancient times, a traveler crossing the sea with a single lantern. Storms, waves, and the ship groaning beneath his feet. But the lantern, tied carefully in place, stays lit through the night. He doesn't try to command the sea. He simply guards the flame. That traveler could be you. And maybe in some way it already is. So tonight, your only job is this. Let your mind settle. Let the winds howl. Let the candle burn. But what if it does go out? That fear, it lingers, doesn't it? Let's touch it gently, because here's the truth. The candle might flicker. You might fall. The world might press in. But your job is not to ensure the candle never dims. It's to be the kind of person who knows how to relight it. That's the discipline. Not perfection, but persistence. Not immunity to life, but mastery of how you meet it. And even now, with your body sinking into softness, your breath growing slower, you sense it. You're becoming more than just someone with a flame. You're becoming the keeper of it. Tonight, you begin a long walk with this candle. There will be shadows, winds, moments when it seems to fade, but also moments of pure clarity, of warmth, of peace. The path won't always be clear, but the light, it's in your hands, and for now, that's enough. You step forward into the quiet, candle in hand. It casts a soft, golden arc across your path, just enough to see, never more. But that's all you need. There was a time when that wasn't true, you remember. You used to demand clarity before taking a single step, answers before action, certainty before courage. And in doing so, you often waited too long. Watched opportunities drift by like leaves in a stream while you debated whether the current was too strong. But the candle you hold tonight doesn't offer certainty. It offers presence. You walk through a memory now, an old conflict. Not dramatic, but enough to churn your stomach back then. Maybe it was a betrayal from a friend, or someone said something that wounded more than you admitted. The storm rose quickly, didn't it? That hot rush in the chest, the urge to say something sharp, something final. But you didn't. Or if you did, you regretted it later. And now, replaying it in your mind, something strange happens. You see yourself not as weak for holding back, but strong. You see how not responding immediately was a form of restraint, and how that restraint was the first sign that your flame had begun to burn inward, not outward. The Stoics knew this feeling well. They didn't fear emotion, but they didn't obey it either. Epictetus taught that while external events may provoke reactions in the body, the soul has a choice. The mind, when trained, becomes a still pond. Ripples come, but the surface returns. You wonder what it would have felt like to have responded then with calm. Not coldness, but clarity, to say, "That hurt," without trying to hurt back. To listen without defensiveness. To stay rooted while the other person flailed. You can't change how it went, but you can learn from it. And you are. You're starting to see that true strength doesn't roar. It doesn't threaten. It doesn't even always speak. Sometimes it just sits there, watching, breathing, unmoved. There's a paradox here, one of those strange Stoic riddles again. Power grows in stillness. You don't become mighty by asserting control over others. You become mighty by not needing to. So let's say the same thing happens tomorrow. Someone lashes out. Life throws something sharp. You feel the sting. The candle wobbles in your hand. What do? You breathe. You ground your awareness in what is yours. Your thoughts, your choices, your values, everything else. The wind. And here's where it gets subtle. Controlling your emotions isn't about bottling them up. It's about seeing them clearly before they choose your next move for you. Like watching a wave come in and realizing you're not the wave. You're the shoreline. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, late at night in his military tent, that anger is like a fire that wants fuel. But you don't have to feed it. You can simply watch it burn itself out. That's not repression. That's wisdom. Tonight, the candle reminds you of that. The way its flame leans but doesn't fall. It flickers in response but never in surrender. And you realize now, maybe for the first time, that the flame within you doesn't need to be aggressive to be strong. It just needs to be steady. Think back again. Another time, maybe more recent, someone challenged your idea. Not cruelly, just directly. You felt the flush in your face, the tightening jaw. You were ready to defend, but what if you didn't? What if you paused, not to retreat, but to give yourself time, to listen, to ask, is this worth it? Or even better, is this mine to carry? Most things aren't. The Stoics called this the dichotomy of control. There are things that belong to you, your judgments, your intentions, your will, and then there is everything else. What people say, how they feel, the shape of events as they unfold. You are responsible for your candle, not the wind. You carry that thought with you now, like a mantra tucked behind your breath. You are not the gust. You are the one who stands, hand open, letting the gust pass. The mind begins to settle with this truth. Emotions don't vanish. They just stop being your masters. You learn to feel them like you'd watch clouds shift, temporary, even beautiful, but never permanent. And the paradox again reveals itself. When you stop trying to control others, you begin to master yourself. Now, in the dimness, you walk a little slower, not out of fear, out of intention. Each step is a choice. Each breath is a reminder. The world will move how it moves, but you choose your pace. You can almost hear it now, that faint whisper of a thought you never noticed before. I'm not here to win the storm. I'm here to walk through it with grace. So keep walking. Let the breeze rise if it must. Let the candle dance. Let your heart beat just a little slower. You're not trying to put out fires tonight. You're learning how to let them burn without losing yourself in the flames. And with every quiet step forward, you're beginning to believe it. You can't control what happens, but you can remain unchanged by it. And that, dear traveler, is how you begin to carry peace, not as a reward but as a choice. You're holding the candle still. The wax has begun to drip a little down the side, quiet trails of effort, of heat shaped into form. But the flame, it's as steady as ever. And as you move further down this inner corridor, you begin to sense it. Not every weight you carry belongs to you. Some of it, maybe most of it, is made of expectation. Expectations about who you're supposed to be, how your life should have turned out by now, what success must look like, how others should treat you, how your story should unfold. You feel their fingerprints everywhere, don't you? You recall a time not long ago when you tried something, maybe applied for a role, began a project, reached out to someone, and it didn't go the way you hoped. You'd prepared, believed, even visualized it all falling into place, but it didn't. And the disappointment wasn't just about the event, it was about the crumbling of the should. It should have worked. They should have seen your effort. Life should be fair. But that word should, it's a thief in the dark, stealing your peace without making a sound. The Stoics spoke plainly about this. If you wish to avoid frustration, they taught, remove the expectation, not the event. Epictetus reminded his students, when you hand over your peace to outcomes, you've already lost. It sounds harsh, doesn't it? As if they were telling you to stop caring. But that's not it. It's about where you place your attention. You plant your energy in the soil of your effort, not the harvest. You can't make the plant grow faster by staring at it. Tonight, your candle becomes a mirror. You look into the flame and ask, what expectations have I carried too long? What have I demanded from life that it never promised to give? You feel the tightness in your chest start to ease. There's a strange freedom in letting go of the should. It's not giving up. It's showing up without needing the world to play by your rules. You think now of a craftsman from centuries ago, someone working long hours in a stone shop, day after day, carving figures that no one might notice. There were no galleries, no patrons, just his hands, the chisel, and the quiet understanding that doing the work was its own reward. He shaped stone the way you shape your actions, not because anyone applauds, but because you are the kind of person who shapes. That's the flame, that's what endures, but still part of you resists. If I stop expecting, won't I lose my ambition? No, you won't, because expectation is about control. Intention is about presence. You can still move forward, still dream, still reach, but without tying your worth to what comes of it. You become like a musician who plays a haunting melody, knowing most who pass by won't hear it, but playing anyway because that's what music is for. And slowly, very slowly, the heavy weight of the should starts to melt, like wax beneath your grip. You feel lighter, not because the world has changed, but because you no longer carry its obligations in your chest. One more paradox presents itself, gently, like the brush of wind along your neck. The moment you stop expecting joy, you become able to receive it. And you think of a day, just an ordinary one, when something unexpectedly sweet happened. A stranger smiled, a breeze caught the curtains just right, someone remembered your name, you hadn't planned for it, you hadn't demanded it, and because of that it felt real. Joy unforced is joy unbreakable. Expectation wants to control timing, but peace trusts rhythm. You run your thumb along the candle's base. It's warm now, softened by time, like you. And you begin to wonder, what if every unmet expectation wasn't a failure but a soft turning? What if it was life's way of guiding you not where you wanted to go, but where you needed to be? The Stoics didn't believe in blaming fate, but they did believe in flowing with it. Amor fati, the love of one's fate. Not resignation but participation. You are not a spectator here. You are a dancer with the unknown. So tonight, as you watch the flame let something go, not your desire, not your action, but the need for things to go your way. Let that melt. Watch it fall drip by drip like wax toward the earth. And as it does, you'll find what was hiding beneath the whole time: freedom. Because the candle never promises to burn forever. It only promises to burn now. And that's enough. So take a breath. One you don't need to measure, one you don't need to earn, and walk forward with your little flame, unburdened, unpromised, unafraid. You are no longer asking life to meet your expectation. You are learning to meet life as it is. And that is the beginning of peace. You're sitting now, not walking. The candle rests on the table before you, its flame softening the lines of the room. There's a stillness here, deep and quiet, like a breath held between heartbeats. Across from you, an old man lies in bed. His face is pale, paper-thin, the kind of face life has passed through many times. He's not speaking, but his presence speaks enough. You're here to sit with him through the night. You've done this before, haven't you? Sat in rooms where endings hang in the air like low fog. You know the smell, sterile and clean and somehow still heavy. You know the rhythm, the hum of machines, the occasional hallway step, the way the clock seems to forget how to move. The man breathes slowly. His eyes open now and then, and you meet them. There's no fear in them, not anymore. And here is where the lesson begins, not in words but in presence. You expect death to be loud, but sometimes it arrives like dusk. No shouting, no storm, just a gradual fading, a return. The Stoics often contemplated death, not to frighten themselves, but to remind themselves to live well. Memento mori, remember you will die, not a threat, a nudge, a compass needle. You look at this man, someone you may have known or maybe just imagined, and you realize he is not resisting, he is not angry, he is not clinging. He's just here with you, with the candle, with the now, and suddenly it clicks. The fear wasn't about death itself, it was about losing control, about being taken before you were ready. But this man, he's not being taken, he's arriving, he's finishing his part in the story. You remember something Marcus Aurelius wrote, maybe on a cold morning before battle. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. It's not morbid, it's liberating. When you accept death, you accept life, fully. You think back, have there been times you held yourself back? Didn't say the thing you wanted to say, didn't try, because you assumed there would always be more. But the candle reminds you everything burns down eventually. And that's not the tragedy, that's the beauty. Nothing is wasted. Every second is a flame. You look at the man again. Maybe he was once afraid, maybe he fought, but now, there's something holy in his calm, as if he knows something you're just beginning to grasp. That freedom lies not in how long you live, but in how lightly you hold it. The nurse enters, checks the machines, leaves, you remain. And for a moment you feel something shift in you. Not panic, not sadness, just perspective. What if you stopped fearing endings? What if you lived in such a way that, when the candle finally went out, you'd smile in the dark? That doesn't mean you should hurry. The Stoics didn't encourage fatalism. They encouraged presence. Awareness of what is and clarity about what matters. You look back over your life just for a moment. The noise, the rushing, the anxious planning. So much of it built on the assumption of more. More time, more chances, more later. But you know better now. Later is never guaranteed, only now. And strangely, that thought doesn't make you anxious. It makes you still. You feel your breath again, deep, slow. You imagine yourself at the edge of something, not fearful but quiet, like standing beside a lake before dawn. There's another paradox here. The more you accept death, the less it haunts you. Like fire, death can consume. But when you understand it, it illuminates. It makes every small joy brighter, every word more important, every connection, like this one, with the man in the bed, more sacred. Maybe that's what he's teaching you just by being here. Maybe that's the lesson of the candle, not to resist the dark but to shine while you can. You gently reach out and adjust the blanket over him. He doesn't move, but something in the room feels lighter, as if even the air has settled into peace. You'll leave soon, but not just yet. For now, you keep watch. Not just over him, but over yourself, over the flame you've been given, over the brief and beautiful life you carry. And when the time comes, whether years from now or the next breath, you'll know you didn't waste it. You held the candle with care. You walked through the night. You lived as though each step mattered, because it did and still does. You've left the quiet room now, stepped back into the open world, but something has changed. Not outside, inside. The man in the bed remains in your memory, not as a figure of sadness, but as a quiet teacher. One who didn't speak, yet said everything. Now you walk alone again, candle in hand, moving through familiar streets that somehow feel different, as if they've softened. And you begin to think of purpose, not the grand kind with trumpets and spotlights, but the kind that hums quietly inside you. The kind that stays lit even when no one's watching. You used to chase it, didn't you? Purpose, like it was hidden in some distant corner of the world waiting to be found. You tried to attach it to roles, titles, dreams, and for a while it felt like fire. But then things changed. Some dreams faded. Others arrived but didn't feel like you thought they would. What was once bright became dim. And for a while you wondered, have I lost my flame? But you didn't. You just didn't notice it had shifted. The Stoics warned against tying purpose to anything fragile: status, praise, success. They pointed inward, always inward, to reason, to choice, to the steady voice that asks not, "What do I want?" but "What is right?" You think now of a child, you, perhaps, who once wanted to be something. An astronaut, a dancer, a writer, something noble, something brave. And even though that dream may have changed, it left behind a trail of light. The dream didn't die, it evolved. Purpose, you realize, isn't a destination, it's a direction. Like a candle's flame, it doesn't run. It just reaches upward moment by moment, breath by breath. And if you listen closely, you can still hear the child in you whispering, "Let's make something, let's help, let's be kind." Not for applause, just because that's what your flame wants. You walk past people now, some laughing, some rushed, some lost in thought. You wonder how many of them are still carrying dreams that no longer fit. How many have mistaken a dim flame for an extinguished one? You haven't, and that's everything. You stop near a bench and sit. The candle rests beside you. Its light flickers on your hands, revealing lines you hadn't noticed. Not signs of age, signs of use. You've lived, you've tried, you've fallen and risen. And through it all, something inside you kept glowing. That's your purpose. To keep burning. To live by your principles when it's hard. To bring light even when there's no reward. To be the kind of person you admire, even when no one sees it. The Stoics would nod at this. They wouldn't care what job you had or how many followers. They'd ask, are you living in accordance with nature? Are you fulfilling the role of a rational, compassionate being? That's all. And somehow it's everything. You think now of a sculptor, another ancient soul. Every day she chipped away at a block of stone. Not because anyone asked. Not for a buyer, but because she saw something inside the marble. Something only she could free. Purpose isn't what others see. It's what you see. It's what you choose to shape. Even now, as you sit in the hush of evening, you can feel it, that deep, quiet certainty. You are still on your path. It may not look like anyone else's, but it burns from the same source. Your candle doesn't need to be a bonfire. It doesn't need to light the whole city. It only needs to light your step. And if it helps someone else see theirs, even better. But that's not why you carry it. You carry it because it's yours. And here's another paradox, one that Stoic thought often returns to. When you stop needing purpose to feel large, it begins to feel limitless. There's a kind of joy in small things. A good conversation, a quiet meal, the act of doing something well just for its own sake. These are not distractions. They are expressions of your flame. You take another breath, not rushed, not planned, just taken. And in that breath you sense a shift. You're no longer searching for your purpose like it's lost. You're tending to it, feeding it, walking with it. You are the firekeeper, and tonight that's enough. You rise from the bench and begin walking again, slower now. Not from weariness, but from intention. There's no need to hurry. The candle in your hand burns at the same pace, no matter how fast you go. You're entering a colder part of your memory now. The kind of cold that isn't just about temperature, but about absence. You come to a door, one you haven't opened in some time. It leads into a place of loss. You push it gently. It creaks in recognition. Inside, it's quiet. The kind of quiet that hums behind the ribs. This is the place where someone once stood beside you and now does not. A loved one, a friend, a chapter of your life, gone. You can still remember the way they made the room feel warmer, as if their laughter itself could fill the cracks in the walls. The absence, when it came, wasn't loud. It settled like dust on old furniture, soft but heavy. You sit again, candle placed gently beside you. The flame flickers not from fear but from cold, and yet it stays. That is grief. It doesn't vanish. It doesn't leave when asked, but it softens. And in the softening you find something you didn't expect: warmth. The Stoics did not run from grief. They sat with it. They asked it questions. Marcus Aurelius, writing after the death of friends and family, reminded himself that pain is part of nature. Why should you be surprised? He would ask himself. Everything that happens is familiar, universal. Not cold, just honest. But still, there is room for gentleness here, for the ache in your chest that hasn't quite named itself. You are allowed to feel it. You are allowed to miss what once was. The key is not to be owned by it. You run your fingers along the edge of the candle. The wax is smooth, pooled around the base. Loss has changed you. That much is clear. But you're still burning. You remember a time, maybe not long ago, when you tried to outrun grief. Filling your days, packing your schedule, anything to avoid sitting in that empty room. But grief is patient. It waits. Not to punish you, but to be seen. And you're seeing it now. In the way the air holds a name you haven't spoken in years. In the way certain music wraps around your spine. In the quiet realization that love does not end with absence. There's a paradox here too, of course there is. Grief, when fully felt, does not extinguish love. It refines it. You begin to see that the love you felt wasn't lost. It just changed form. It became memory. It became the way you speak to others now, the softness in your voice, the way you hold space for someone else's pain. That's what grief does. It hollows and it hones. The Stoics called this transformation. Not in poetic terms, but in discipline. If something happens, ask what virtue it gives you the chance to practice. Loss. It gives you the opportunity to practice acceptance, to grow in patience, to deepen in compassion. You may not have asked for the lesson, but now that it's here, you won't turn away. You think now of a winter, one real or imagined, where you stood alone in the cold, breath visible in the air, and still, you lit the candle. You didn't ask the wind to stop. You asked yourself to endure, and you did. Here in this quiet place of memory, you realize you are not broken. You are shaped. You carry the warmth of everyone you've ever loved. Their echoes live in your tone, your choices, your dreams. You are not alone. You never were. The cold may come again. It probably will. But now you know you have fire. You reach for the candle again and lift it. The wax has hardened where it dripped, like scars that no longer sting. You walk out from that room, not hurried, not forced, just steady, just sure. The light doesn't erase the loss, but it walks beside it. And maybe that's what healing looks like, not the absence of grief, but the presence of grace. The Stoics never promised a life without pain. They promised a life where pain becomes purpose. And tonight, as your flame continues to burn, you begin to believe it. You are strong, not in spite of your grief, but because of it. You find yourself walking into a brighter place now, though the candle in your hand still glows with the same quiet persistence. Light moves across the walls differently here. It stretches farther than expected, as though unsure of its own reach. This is the realm of illusion, of praise, of status, of smoke that rises quickly and vanishes just as fast. You've been here before. We all have. You remember a moment when someone noticed you, perhaps at work, or in a gathering, or even online. The compliment was sharp and sudden, like a match struck in a dark hallway. You felt lifted, as if your value had expanded. You were seen, admired, maybe even envied, and for a moment that warmth felt real. But then it passed, and in its place came the echo. Was it enough? Will they still think that tomorrow? What if they don't? That's the trap of praise. It feels solid for a second, then dissolves. The Stoics warned about this again and again. If you are delighted by praise, Epictetus wrote, you have made yourself a slave to the opinion of others. It doesn't mean you shouldn't appreciate kindness, but it's about where you build your home, on solid ground or in the flickering smoke of approval. You pause beneath a street lamp now and your candle's light competes with its artificial glow. The street lamp is bigger, brighter, but less enduring. When the power cuts, it vanishes. Your candle remains. You start to understand, reputation is not the same as character. Reputation belongs to others. Character belongs to you. You recall someone from history, maybe Cato, the Stoic senator of Rome. He wore the same simple clothes in public, walked barefoot, and refused to flatter the powerful. People thought him odd, even mocked him. But his integrity didn't shift with public opinion. He wasn't interested in smoke. He was anchored in substance. That kind of strength can't be given. It must be built. And slowly, you see how easy it is to mistake recognition for reality, to chase applause instead of alignment. You remember a time not long ago when you did something right, something kind, and no one noticed. It was small, private, but now in retrospect it feels more important than the big moments. Why? Because you didn't do it for praise. You did it because it was good. And that is the purest kind of act. The kind that keeps your flame fed even when no one is watching. You turn a corner now and find a window. Your reflection stares back, dimly lit by the candle. You look honest, not perfect, but steady. That's better. You trace your thoughts, how much of your energy has been spent managing perception, curating, editing, second-guessing. The Stoics would tell you this. Be concerned not with appearing good, but being good. That difference is everything. There's a paradox here, of course. The more you chase being admired, the more hollow you feel. But the more you act with virtue regardless of attention, the more whole you become. You think of smoke again. It can swirl, mesmerize, even obscure, but it leaves no shape, no warmth, no substance. Your candle, however, leaves wax behind. It reduces itself to light the world. It gives, even as it disappears. So ask yourself tonight in this quiet moment, do I want to be seen as burning bright? Or do I want to actually burn for something real? Because one can be faked, the other cannot. You begin to notice the air clearing, the illusions pulling back. You feel taller, not in pride, but in truth. You're not rising on a pedestal. You're rooted in the ground. You hold the candle close and whisper a quiet promise to yourself. Let others speak of me as they wish. I will walk my path in silence if I must, but I will walk it. And in that decision, a strange calm enters your chest. No more pretending, no more contorting, just living, fully, simply, deliberately. You turn from the window and begin walking again. The wind still moves, the shadows shift, but you no longer need the spotlight. You carry your own light, and it is enough. You walk now into a quieter stretch of your mind where mirrors once hung on every wall, not for vanity but for reflection. And yet somewhere along the way, those mirrors stopped showing you who you were. They started showing who others expected you to be. You remember it clearly now. A period in your life, not dramatic, not tragic, when you slowly began to shape yourself to fit the rooms you entered. The way you spoke adjusted. The way you laughed softened or sharpened depending on the company. Even your silences were curated. It wasn't deceit. It was survival. You melted. The wax of your identity took the shape of the mold around you, whatever the moment required. And like any candle poured into another's container, your flame became harder to find. That's what makes this section of the journey so tender. It's not about loss from the outside, but about the slow, almost imperceptible giving away of yourself. The Stoics were suspicious of this, not of adaptation. No, they were flexible, resilient thinkers, but of self-forgetting, of the ways we let others dictate who we are by chasing approval, harmony, or ease. They asked, what is your essence? And are you living it daily? It's a sharp question, one that burns if you sit with it. You pause now at a doorway in your memory, perhaps a job you stayed in too long, a relationship where you slowly disappeared, or a social circle where you performed instead of belonged. And yet, you're not angry. Not anymore. Because you see it now. You were learning. Even the melting had its place. It showed you what it felt like to lose shape. So now, as you begin to mold yourself anew, you do so not from rebellion, but from recognition. You are not anyone's sculpture. You are your own sculptor. And the wax, your choices, your values, your words can be reshaped. Deliberately, stoically. You imagine someone now, someone in history, maybe Socrates himself, standing barefoot in the market, unmoved by mockery, unconcerned with whether he fit in. He didn't resist the world, but he didn't disappear into it either. He stood apart by being himself. What if you did that? What if, in small ways, you began to reclaim the shape of your own spirit, not loudly, not as rebellion, but as realignment? You begin now here by naming what matters to you, not what looks good, not what's trending, but what burns steady inside. Maybe it's honesty, maybe it's simplicity, maybe it's the quiet courage of not performing. And then, gently, you place those values like stones around your flame, protecting it from the wind of other people's expectations. You feel the difference. This isn't about defiance. It's about integrity. You don't need to be a perfect version of yourself. You just need to be your version. And there's a paradox again. Yes, always. The more fully you inhabit your true form, the more deeply you connect with others. Not because you fit them, but because you free them to be themselves too. That's the quiet power of authenticity. It's contagious. You lift the candle now and feel how its heat wraps around your fingers, not to burn but to remind. You are no longer wax being poured. You are the fire that shapes. And that means you'll sometimes disappoint people. You'll step out of their molds, but you'll also find your breath again, your voice, your stillness, because you're not here to be a mirror. You're here to be a light, and if that light flickers, that's okay. It still glows with what is real. You walk now with a new kind of pace, not fast, not slow, but true. You have reclaimed something tonight, not from anyone else, but from the edges of yourself. And in doing so, you've become a little more whole. The Stoics weren't asking you to reject the world, only to enter it without losing yourself in the crowd. And you, candle in hand, are doing just that. You are becoming the shape of your own soul. The night has grown deeper, and the world around you quieter still. Even the wind seems to have settled into a hush, as if respecting the weight of your reflection. The candle burns on, faithful and soft, casting a golden pool of silence around your steps. You find yourself drawn now into the heart of conflict, not a loud, aggressive one, but a slow-burning kind. The conflict of inner division, of wanting two things at once, of standing at the crossroads between who you are and who you fear you'll become. You've known this feeling before. The tug-of-war between action and inaction, between comfort and challenge, between staying silent and speaking your truth. These aren't battles fought with fists. They're the kind that tire the soul. And the most difficult part, sometimes both paths seem noble, or neither does. You stop walking now, close your eyes. Feel the tension, not in your shoulders but behind your ribs. That ache of indecision where one voice says go and another whispers wait. The Stoics called this apatheia, not indifference but harmony within, the absence of inner warfare. They taught that when you live in line with your principles, the inner voices quiet down, not because decisions become easier but because you become clear. And clarity is what you crave now, not the illusion of perfect choices, but the courage to choose. You think back to a moment in your life, maybe recent, maybe buried, where you were caught between two desires. One felt safe, the other felt true. You chose safety perhaps, or maybe truth. Either way, the cost lingered. But tonight, under the soft flicker of your candle, you begin to realize you are not your past decisions. You are the decision maker. That's the Stoic insight. It's not about being right. It's about being rooted. You consider a story, perhaps of Marcus Aurelius, surrounded by advisors, each urging a different path during a war. He didn't panic. He paused. He wrote. He listened inwardly before outwardly. And then he acted, not because he knew the outcome, but because he knew himself. You feel that now, the difference between reaction and response, One is reflex, the other is resolve. And you ask yourself softly, what would my wiser self do? Not the self others expect, not the self afraid of regret, the self that knows who they are and acts from that still point. Sometimes the answer will be to speak, other times to remain silent, sometimes to let go, other times to stand firm. But the principle is the same. Let your actions be yours, not stolen from fear, not borrowed from the crowd. You light another small inner candle now, intention. You tell yourself, even when the path is unclear, I can still walk it with integrity. And in that moment, the war within calms, not because it's over, but because you've decided to stop fighting yourself. There's a paradox here too, naturally. That clarity often doesn't come before the choice, but after it. Like how courage only exists in the doing, not the waiting. You smile quietly, realizing how many times you've waited for certainty like it was a train you could board. But certainty never came. And yet, you still moved forward. That's the miracle of action born from values, not outcomes. When you choose according to who you are, even if you stumble, you grow stronger. So now when the next choice arises, and it will, you will not beg the world for signs. You will not delay in search of a perfect answer. You will listen. You will breathe. You will choose. And whatever comes, you will carry it. Not because it's easy, but because it's yours. The candle glows warmer now, as if it recognizes something in you has resolved. You don't need to control the outcome. You just need to be true to the light within. The path begins to climb now. Subtly at first, then with greater slope. Each step asks more of you, not in speed, but in awareness. The candle's flame leans slightly in the wind, but it does not go out, not even close. You're entering the realm of resistance. Not resistance from others, but the quiet, familiar kind that rises from within. The part of you that whispers, not today, you're tired, it doesn't matter, what's the point? You know this voice, it wears many masks: procrastination, doubt, cynicism. Each of them convincing in its own way, each of them promising rest while stealing time. The Stoics spoke clearly about this force. They didn't call it evil, they called it habit, inertia. The natural tendency to sink toward comfort rather than rise toward discipline. And discipline, it's not a word that always lands gently. It can feel cold, rigid, harsh. But in the Stoic world, discipline is freedom in motion. It is not a punishment. It is a promise you keep to yourself. You think now of someone you once knew, or maybe someone you were, who had dreams left unspoken because the resistance was louder than the desire. A book never written, a conversation never started, a step never taken. And you ask softly, was it fear or just delay dressed as logic? The Stoics warned, don't waste what you cannot restore. Time, attention, life. You pause mid-climb, catch your breath. Notice the way the candle still burns no matter how your legs tremble. You realize something. Resistance does not disappear when you wait long enough. It only hardens. But when you move through it, even slowly, it weakens. Think of a blacksmith. Someone in an ancient forge lifting the same hammer every day. Not because it's glamorous, but because the repetition shapes both the metal and the maker. That's what you're doing. Shaping yourself through small, repeated choices. You begin to walk again. Not fast, but steady. You remember a Stoic exercise, maybe from Epictetus, who advised his students to mentally rehearse difficulty before it arrived, not to scare themselves, but to train their minds to respond with readiness rather than resistance. You try that now. Imagine a challenge ahead, a long day, a difficult conversation, a sudden change in plan, and instead of reacting, you breathe. You say, this too is training, this too is the forge, and you continue. There's a paradox here again, of course there is. That doing the hard thing does not drain you, it often revives you, because you stop leaking energy into indecision, into avoidance, into regret. You begin to trust yourself more, not because you're always strong, but because you always return. That is what makes your candle so stubborn. It doesn't burn because the world is kind. It burns because you tend it. Even now, climbing higher with wind against your back and the pull of gravity calling you downward, you keep going. Not dramatically, just deliberately. You think now of a quote you once read, not stoic but true. If you're going through hell, keep going. And maybe that's what resistance hates most, that you keep going. You look up. The path narrows, but the stars seem closer. You realize elevation was never meant to be easy. It was meant to be earned. And you are earning it not through speed or perfection, but through consistency. One honest step, one disciplined choice, one refusal to give in to the voice that says, wait until it's easier. You don't wait anymore, you walk. And the candle thanks you with warmth. Not applause, not reward, just heat, just light. And that is enough. The path levels out now. The air is thinner, cooler, clearer. You've climbed through resistance, not to escape the world but to see it from above. There's a stillness here that wasn't available before. You stand a moment in that quiet, holding the candle at your side. And for the first time tonight, you feel not only the flame, but the weight of the wax beneath it. It's not heavy, but it's there, the residue of effort, of everything you've carried. And you begin to wonder how much of your suffering comes not from what happens to you, but from what you believe shouldn't have happened. You think of discomfort, not pain from loss or hardship, but the friction of not getting what you want or getting what you didn't expect. It's a different kind of suffering, subtle, modern, the kind you scroll away from, the kind you numb with distraction, the kind that builds over time into resentment. This is the trap of attachment. The Stoics called it the confusion between what is up to us and what is not. A simple idea, but one that, when lived, unlocks a kind of freedom no possession can buy. You think of Epictetus, born into slavery, beaten, controlled, yet still he wrote of joy, of self-command, of not depending on others to be at peace. Not because he was blind to pain, but because he understood. Your mind is your last sanctuary, and nothing can enter without your permission. You sit now on a large stone at the edge of a ridge. The view is wide and the night sky open like a conversation you've been avoiding. And you speak to yourself maybe, or to the sky. You say, I have fought with what is. I have resisted reality. I have tried to bend it to my will. And I am tired. The words are not defeat. They are release. You're not giving up, you're giving over to truth. There's a moment now in the silence where something shifts. You notice how the candle flame doesn't resist the wind, it dances with it. It does not rage, it does not stiffen, it adapts and survives. And that is your model. Acceptance, you realize, is not passivity, it's cooperation with nature. Like a sailor who stops yelling at the storm and begins steering with the wind. Not because they enjoy the waves, but because they respect the sea. You look back over your life again from this higher place. You see choices, regrets, unexpected turns, and suddenly there's no enemy there, just movement, just unfolding. And you breathe in, not to hold, but to let go. There's a paradox here again, quiet but unmistakable. The more you accept things as they are, the more power you gain to change what matters. Because you stop wasting energy trying to control the uncontrollable. You bring that energy home into your choices, your responses, your soul. You remember a time you held onto something, a grudge, a failed plan, a false hope, far past its natural life. It drained you, not because it was wrong, but because it was over. Tonight you let something go, you don't need to name it, just feel it slip from your fingers like cooling wax. And in its place a softness grows, the kind that doesn't cling. You lift the candle again, feel the warmth, feel how it never argues with the night. It simply exists, bright, small, and certain. This is your work now, to become like the flame, not passive, not burning out, but steady, purposeful. Untied to outcomes, you walk again. The air doesn't change, but you do. The path curves downward now, gently, like a long exhale after holding your breath too long. You feel the shift not just in your steps, but in your shoulders. Lighter. As if something you've carried for years has decided to walk on its own. You descend not because you're retreating, but because you've seen the view, and now you return with clarity. There's a question that follows you as you walk. What have you been measuring your life against? You pause, it's a difficult question. One that doesn't demand an immediate answer, but one that echoes. Was it success? A timeline? A list of milestones scribbled in the corner of your mind, career, marriage, wealth, legacy. Or perhaps, quietly and without noticing, you've measured it against others, their progress, their light, their noise. And in doing so, you forgot something essential. Your life is not a race. It is a rhythm. The Stoics saw this clearly. Seneca, in particular, wrote of time as the most sacred possession. He said that while people guard their money and homes with great care, they allow time, the most precious thing, to slip through their fingers. And so you think about your time, not with guilt, with awareness. How much of it has been spent chasing what you were told matters instead of what actually brings you peace? You step now into a grove of trees. The branches don't compete. They don't check to see which one is tallest. Each simply grows as it must toward its own sun. You run your hand along the bark of one tree, gnarled, not perfect, but strong, complete. There's a lesson here and you feel it deeply. Comparison is a thief of peace, because someone will always be ahead, and someone behind. But the Stoic question is never, am I better than them? It's always, am I better than I was yesterday? That's all, that's enough. You smile now, perhaps at the absurdity of how often you've measured yourself with broken rulers. The house, the title, the applause, they were never the point. The point was, are you living according to nature, according to reason, with courage, justice, moderation, and wisdom, even if quietly, even if no one else notices? You think of a gardener, someone who rises early not for glory but to tend the soil. Day after day, pruning, watering, waiting. There is no finish line, there's only the care itself. Your soul is no different. You are here to tend to it, not to display it. And there's the paradox again. The less you strive for admiration, the more admirable you become. You sit now beneath one of the trees. The candle rests beside you, still glowing, still yours. And you ask yourself gently, what would it look like to stop striving and start aligning? It wouldn't mean quitting. It would mean choosing. Deliberately, according to what truly matters. The way Marcus Aurelius chose to write his thoughts in the margins of war. The way a parent wakes early to greet the day with love, not recognition. The way yes, you have been walking all this time, quietly, steadily, faithfully. You realize now your life does not need to impress anyone, it only needs to be true. And in this moment the truth is simple, you're here, you're learning. You're burning gently against the darkness, not to prove anything, but because that's what candles do. The trees thin now as the path returns to open space. Not barren, just wide. Empty in the way a quiet room is, waiting to be filled with presence rather than noise. You walk slower. The candle remains steady. Its flame flickers not with uncertainty, but with life. That's the thing about fire, it dances, but it does not apologize. This is the space where the idea of control arrives. Not the healthy kind. The other kind, the illusion. The belief that if you just try hard enough, plan well enough, anticipate every angle, nothing bad will happen. You've believed it, we all have. You remember days spent rehearsing conversations that never happened. Nights rerunning mistakes like films with no ending. 1,000 tiny tugs in your chest, each one asking, could I have done more? Could I have stopped it? And the truth, sometimes yes, but often no. And that's where the Stoics stood firm. They built their peace on the simple, radical truth: some things are not up to you. You stop walking, you say it aloud. Some things are not up to me. At first it feels like a loss, but then, like something unlocking, it begins to feel like freedom. You don't control the weather. You don't control other people's thoughts. You don't control the past, or the way time moves, or how others love, or how the world spins forward with or without your permission. But you do control what you choose now, and that's more than enough. There's a story here of a Roman general, perhaps, returning from war in disgrace. He walks through the streets, not in shame but in silence. He has done his best, and now what remains is how he carries himself after the loss. He can't change the outcome, but he can live with honor. That is the power you hold, even when the world ignores you, even when things fall apart, even when someone walks away. You are not powerless because your power was never over the storm. It was always over the sail. You reach the edge of a pond now, still water. You sit and the candle reflects back in two places, above the wick and below in the mirror of the water. Two flames, one real, one ghost, and you see clearly. Control is not certainty. Control is not dominance. Control is choice, again and again in the face of the unknown. There's a paradox again. The more you accept what you don't control, the more powerful you become in what you do. Because your energy stops leaking into worry and starts pouring into presence. And that presence becomes something sacred. The Stoics didn't preach surrender. They preached serenity in action. They called on you to prepare, to practice, to persevere, but never to pretend you were God, because you are not. You are human, but a human who can choose how to respond. You lift the candle again. You don't curse the wind. You shield the flame. You don't demand the road be flat. You walk it anyway. And with each step forward, you step deeper into peace. Not the kind that waits for everything to go right, but the kind that burns quietly when everything doesn't. You don't need to control everything. You only need to control yourself. And tonight, you are doing that one breath at a time. The path leads now to a place that feels familiar, not in its form, but in its feeling. You know this space, though you've never named it. It's the quiet chamber where fear hides behind locked doors. Not loud fear, the quieter kind, the kind that asks, what if I never become who I was meant to be? You stop. Not because you're unsure, but because you sense this is not a place to rush through. This is where expectation lives. You've carried it for years, maybe since childhood. The idea of who you should be, what you should achieve, how far you should go, how impressive, how kind, how stable, how certain. Expectation wears many masks. It can sound like ambition or self-improvement, but often it's just a quieter form of punishment. The Stoics didn't argue against progress, but they warned against tying your worth to outcomes, to what never fully arrives. You recall a time, perhaps many, when something didn't turn out the way you'd hoped. The job, the relationship, the moment where you did everything right and it still fell apart. And the voice of expectation whispered, you failed. But did you? You sit now on a low wall, candle in your lap, and consider this. What if you didn't fail? What if the goal itself was mistaken? The Stoics asked a better question. Did you act with virtue? Did you do your part? Did you remain honest, brave, just self-controlled? If yes, then nothing else defines the moment. You start to see it now. Expectation isn't a flame. It's a shadow that chases it. Because the moment you tie your peace to a specific outcome, you become hostage to things beyond your grasp. And that is the opposite of freedom. You think now of a craftsman in a quiet shop, carving wood alone, with no guarantee of praise or success. The beauty isn't in the finished product, it's in the care, the attention, the presence. You could live that way too, without needing everything to be perfect, or profitable, or impressive. You could begin to replace expectation with intention, to trade I must for I choose. And here lies another paradox, gentle and deep. When you stop needing to prove something, you finally begin to express something. Not to impress, just to be. You let the thought sink in, I am not what I achieve, I am what I practice. You lift the candle again and it glows as if hearing you. You are not behind, you are not late, you are not broken, you are becoming. Expectation wanted you to be a finished painting, but you are a brushstroke, a movement, a flame mid-dance. You stand now and walk forward, not because you're sure of the destination, but because you no longer demand one. You are practicing the art of showing up with your full self. That's enough. That's everything. And as you walk, a strange peace settles in. You no longer need your life to match the image in your head. You just need it to match your principles. That's what freedom really is, not the power to get what you want, but the power to want what is true. You take a breath and walk into it. You feel it now. The path is beginning to dissolve beneath your feet. Not vanish, but soften, as if the ground knows this part of the journey has brought you somewhere important. Not a destination, but a clearing. You step forward and the landscape opens. Wide, quiet, untouched. No signs, no maps, just stillness. This is the space of freedom, not the kind you shout about, but the kind you feel when the mind finally releases its grip on the reins. You stop and look around, then down at the candle still glowing in your hands. It has burned all this way. Through wind, through cold, through doubt, through the thick fog of your own forgetting. And here it is, still burning. And now you understand. The candle is you. You were never walking with it. You were walking as it, burning steadily, quietly, through change, through loss, through uncertainty, through expectation, through every night that came before this one. And here you are. There's something sacred in this realization. Your flame was never a product of your achievements or your validation or your confidence. It was simply there, because you chose to tend to it. That is the final Stoic lesson. Freedom is not granted, it is cultivated. It's not the absence of duty but the presence of alignment. It's not about doing whatever you want, it's about wanting what is right. And what is right is often simple: to live well, to act with intention, to love without possession, to lose without collapse, to begin again without apology. You remember the paradox, always the paradox. The freer you become inside, the more fully you can show up for the world outside. Not because you're detached, because you're rooted. A tree does not serve the wind by chasing it. It serves by standing still so others may rest in its shade. You can be that tree, that flame, that anchor. You look up. The stars have returned. Scattered and silent like the truths you've uncovered tonight, each glowing softly, asking nothing, offering everything. You breathe in. The night is wide, the self is quiet, there is nothing to prove, nothing to fix, nothing to perform. You are here. You are whole. And as the final breeze moves past you, gentle, curious, you realize you are no longer afraid of being extinguished. Because even if the flame goes out, you'll know how to light it again. That is the secret. That is the freedom. That is the candle that refused to burn out. And now let it slow. Let the rhythm of your breath return to something unguarded. Let the muscles in your jaw, your neck, your chest all loosen, like strings unknotted one by one. You've walked far tonight, not in distance but in depth, the kind of walk that isn't measured in steps but in silence earned, in truths remembered. You don't need to hold onto every word. Let most of it fall away like petals in a breeze. What remains will remain. That's the gift of reflection. It doesn't demand that you remember. It only asks that you notice. And you have noticed the flicker of old fears, the weight of unneeded expectations, the heat of your own presence, now more familiar. You've touched grief and it's softened. You've looked at illusion and it blinked first. You've stared down the need to control and finally unclenched your fists. And now you rest. The candle will burn a little longer even after you sleep. Not in the room, but within you. Its warmth won't leave. It never has. So take this moment, not as the end of something, but as the quiet beginning of whatever tomorrow asks of you. You're ready, you're steady, and most of all, you're free, not because life will get easier, but because you know how to walk through the night carrying your own light. Sleep gently now. Let it all fade. Let it all go. You've done enough. You are enough.